Wonderful viewers, good that you're welcome again to another edition of the Living Television. As usual, today we are presenting you with issues of the moment. On today's issues of the moment, we'll be looking at Governor Sibilaye Fubara of Rivers State, who has vowed to implement all the Supreme Court rulings concerning the political disputes in Rivers State. We are going to look at that, and today I have my wonderful analyst in the house. We're looking at that. We are also looking at the dissolution of the local government election that took place last year, October, and then the reaction of the people, and what do we expect from this? And is this the rule of Godfatherism, or is there any other thing behind it? Today, I'm your anchor man, Chinedum Godson Adiele, and by my right, I have Comrade Nnamdi Lekwachi. Comrade Nnamdi Lekwachi is a historian, is a public affairs analyst, and also a tele-evangelist. Comrade, welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me. Good day, viewers.
I have also with me by my left, Dr. Max Ndwago. Dr. Stanley Ndwagibe, sorry. Dr. Stanley Ndwagibe is a media person and also a public affairs analyst and political analyst. He's in the studio with us here. Dr. Stanley, you're welcome to the program.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator, for having me. To our viewers, welcome to this show.
Today, we are looking, I'm sure all of us are abreast with the happenings in Rivers State and then the recent Supreme Court judgment or ruling, as to say, and then Amehula has been returned. And similarly, the governor of Rivers State has been given 48 hours to represent the 2025 budget. What is this ruling of the Supreme Court to the people of Rivers State? Let me start with you, comrade.
Thank you so much. The ruling is, maybe any way you want to look at it, is final. And that reminds me of the saying by Robert Jackson, an eminent jurist in America, which was also re-echoed here by Justice Chukwudifo Oputa, known as the Socrates of the Supreme Court. It is that the Supreme Court is not final because it is infallible. It is infallible because it is final. So the fact there remains that whatever the Supreme Court has interpreted or said to be the law is the law and is binding finally on every legal subject, including Rivers State in this context, and then the government therein. So it has come, and then I want to also commend the governor for being law-abiding, in as much as I may have concerns as to the letters and the spirit of that interpretation. But I want to commend the governor because if you look at it, as of 3 days ago, immediately the judgment was actually pronounced, the Commissioner for Information of the States, the Commissioner for Information of the State, Mr. Johnson Joseph, said they would be looking at the certified true copy of the judgment to see if in any way the laws of Rivers State had been trampled upon or infringed upon by this judgment. But in a federation, you don't put the laws of the state above the law of the federation, especially interpretation coming from the Supreme Court. That's the apex court created October 1, 1963. So I want to commend the governor for saying, though we do not totally accept this to be fair or to mean justice, we have no choice. We are going to implement. So it's a fait accompli, anyway you look at anyhow you look at it. So it goes to the same saying with which I began. We are final not because we are infallible. We are infallible because we are final. In other words, you cannot appeal this judgment. It has come to stay.
All right, Dr. Stanley Ndwago. If you look at it, there've been a lot of mouth wagging concerning these rulings. Some have called it assistance from the Supreme Court to the rape of democracy. And so many persons are saying too many things as it concerns this democracy.
I have my concerns on here.
Okay.
We are all aware that when President Tinubu was the governor of Lagos State, the Lagos State allocations, that is for local governments, allocations were withheld for, I don't know the number of months or years. And
by the then Obasanjo.
Yeah, Obasanjo administration. So Tinubu, the then governor of Lagos State, went to the same Supreme Court, and Supreme Court said that the federal government of Nigeria, as of then, didn't have the power whatsoever to withhold the allocation of any arm of the government of the Federation. This same Supreme Court today, from what I heard, has ruled directing the Central Bank, the Attorney General of the Federation, and maybe the Minister of Finance to withhold the allocation of Rivers State. I have found it difficult to balance between these two. That is reversing his earlier ruling or judgment in favor of Lagos State government. And that, to me, is going to affect governance in Rivers State. The Supreme Court should have considered the effect of this particular aspect of his ruling. Well, as Comrade Lepati said, we have no option but to obey the ruling of the Supreme Court. After the Supreme Court, you can only appeal to God. They have given their judgment. However, there are a lot of things that should have been considered before certain aspects of the ruling we are given. That is my take here.
All right, comrade, looking at this judgment and also considering what Fubara, had gone through within this period, do you think from the grapevine what people are saying that it is as a result of Tinubu's relationship with the federal government, especially with Mr. President, and with the role he played, even as a PDP, others would have called that anti-party activities and so on, yet PDP has not been able to do anything with that. Do you think his relationship with Mr. President could be part of what this judgment?
No, we cannot say that entirely, but that is also part of the whole thing. Yes, we understand that there is affiliation or there is this political closeness. The minister of FCT, that is the former Governor Yeso Wike of Rivers State, enjoys with the president or the presidency, if you like. But let us understand something. If we are talking about interpretation of a fact of law based on its merits, we don't come with emotion, we don't come with sympathy, we come with facts. And in most cases, ours is evidence-based legal system. Now, I think what is at contest here, or what is at issue here is simple. That there was a disagreement between the governor and his political godfather, over which I think the president even invited them. There were I think 8 points resolutions. And 8-point resolution. The president actually said, okay, do this, do that. Everybody agreed. Now, the governor, and I think this will also have to a large extent affect the federal government. The governor came back, began to implement what the president said he should do. The other party did not implement theirs. What the governor did was to withdraw the case. Because he had a good case.
They use it
against him. He had a very beautiful case. An issue. The constitution is expressed. The constitution is clear that whenever there shall be a defection in the House of Assembly or even in the National Assembly, without problem or maybe wrangling or anything in the political parties so affected, that those who had so defected cease to be legal or cease to be recognized elected members, whether the House, whether the Senate. Now these persons defected. You went to the court, asking the court to declare vacant their seats, or in other words, to sack them. And the matter was still in the court. You went to the same court again, approached the court. So by that action, you have recognized, you have accorded them what is known as implied recognition. And that also goes along with this thing happens in politics. Today it's affecting Ukraine. I'm sorry, I'm digressing. When Ukraine reached that agreement to denuclearize, USA was watching, Russia was watching, but today Ukraine is regretting it. So in politics, you have to be strategic. You understand? So that was what the Supreme Court now relied upon. Even the appeal court had actually ruled a similar thing, saying by virtue of withdrawing this matter, it means you are recognizing this house. But then it's unfortunate. Yes, there could be affiliation. We've seen some romance between the minister of FCT and, in fact, the judiciary, including revocation of a land belonging to Julius Berger and repurposing and then reconstruction of buildings on that same land, and then which we are giving out to the So I think people are beginning to talk. And again, the fact that, and it's very, very unfortunate, we can use Abuja High Court to tell Rivers State not to conduct local government elections, or to tell the police not to provide security service during election, and then tell INEC to withhold voters register. It speaks to something. You understand? And like Doc said, it hindered the businesses of governance, and it's unfortunate for us. It's unfortunate.
All right, Doc, looking at the whole scenario, the people of Rivers State, especially some of the workers this morning, lamented bitterly and said they are 100% behind Governor Fubara because he's paying them. And if anything happens as concerns the withdrawal of allocations and so on, that they will now take to the streets, they will protest and stuff like this. Do you think that what Joseph Wike's relationship with the federal government has a hand in this, just like I asked earlier?
In Igbo land, there is a bird we call wanza, a very small bird. And when you see that small bird dancing by the wayside, if you watch and listen carefully, there could be somebody beating the drums for it somewhere in the bush. Comrade Tupachi said there could be something like that. I agree totally that something emboldens Nyesom Wike. Something gives him that strength and courage to fight the governor. And the issue is that he wants to remain the Lord forever in Rivers State. This is a young man who left university from youth service. He became the local government chairman. In fact, the chairman of one of the most popular local governments in Nigeria. Obiakpo. From there, I think he became a chief of staff in no less a state than in quick succession. From being a chief of staff, he became the minister of state. From being a minister of state, the governor. And then today an FCT minister. And he wants to remain in control. He wants to remain in power. He wants to ensure that his whims and caprices will be obeyed. Then the governor, as a governor, didn't want it that way. To the extent that from what I heard, the outgoing governor appointed almost all the commissioners, appointed the chief security officer to the governor, appointed the chief of staff, appointed almost every office holder in the state. If you are the governor, would you just keep quiet? The governor made a move. Unfortunately, Wike is walking ahead of the governor. Unfortunately, there could be some things Wike is doing which I don't want to accuse him. But in all, my question is, does this man have the interests of Rivers State at heart? Does this man want governance to go on smoothly in Rivers State? The answer is no. Therefore, I stand with the workers in Rivers State. If they take to the streets, it is their right to do so. Because by withholding the allocation of how many, I don't know the number of local governments, 27 or so. 23 local government areas. It means you are keeping workers in the 23 local government areas hungry. It means that they can't even buy typing sheets and type their documents. It means that they can't even pay cleaners who will clean their offices. It means that their children cannot even go to school this time. Therefore, I want to appeal to the federal government of Nigeria to please remember that he invited the governor and the other party to a round table and gave, according to Comrade, an 8-point resolution, which the governor came and began to implement his own. And the other party did not implement it. Today, they are holding it against him. And I'm sure that it was in obedience to the president that he withdrew that case. He said today it is being used against him. They are making the governor look weak. He's not weak. I think he was being obedient to the powers that be.
Yes.
And today such things are working against him. The president should please call his man to order. Least the problem of Nigeria begins from Rivers State, because some people are not happy. Tomorrow you could hear that something else is happening, and there will be a spillover effect of what might start from Rivers State. By the time it begins in Rivers State,
it's already happening in Lagos State.
Delta State now will.
Or it's already happening in Lagos State, although that has been addressed to an extent.
Good. So I want to agree that Wike has some certain things emboldening him to fight the governor of Rivers State.
All right, shortly before now, the Federal High Court, I think in Abuja also, the Federal High Court in Abuja gave an order, I think, restraining the people in charge of these allocations to stop River State allocation sometime. The Federal High Court in Abuja did that. I think a lady was in charge of that court.
Yes.
And then it was later vacated
By the appeal court.
by the appeal court. And then the reasons for that vacation, how come today again the same thing is happening?
I think appeal court was actually saying the same thing. It was the River State government that actually appealed that judgment up to the Supreme Court. The appeal court was also saying the same thing, that the Amehula-led house should be recognized, ordering the governor to represent the budget of 2025, which I know must have been spent by a considerable percentage, you understand? Now, the whole thing is this. It speaks to something like I was saying, and it's very, very, and it's very horrible, that the judiciary, as we have today, is not independent, and that's my personal opinion, and I own it. The judiciary is not independent entirely of its own. The time President Bola Ahmed Tinubu was sworn in, the first thing he proclaimed was removal of subsidy. Am I correct?
Yeah.
He had yet to sit down then, when he said he was still standing. He had not even sat down. He was still standing. He had yet to sit down to know his seat at the villa when he said subsidy was gone. Then the next thing he did was to give the National Assembly 70 billion naira. He said to allow them to settle in. I'm using his words. And then he gave the judiciary 35 billion naira. To me, I have never found any reason, any whatsoever justification for all that. But it speaks to something, that the current dispensation has the type of National Assembly it wants, led by Godswill Akpabio, and has the kind of judiciary it wants. So look at all these things and you see, you can even connect the dots of lack of that self-dependence on the part of the judiciary. So when you look at these things, you see that the way Amechi was talking, Wike was talking,
yeah.
You understand? You will see that there was that arrogance, that air of arrogance was there. He even talked with certainty, as if he had also, as if the whole drama unfolding has a predetermined outcome. You understand? So to me, yes, I know that the governor was beating his chest because he has the blessings of the president, and he has said it, and then we are beginning, and now we are now witnessing it. So it's unfortunate. It speaks to something that the judiciary, as we have it today, is not that. Just look at the judgment. Look at the judgment. We all know the facts before the court. We all know the prayers and the petitions and supplications of the parties involved. But it's not for us to decide. So they have decided. All we can do is to agree. But then I still bring me back to what I've been saying. We are final not because we are infallible. That we are infallible because we are final. So when the Supreme Court makes a mistake, of course it does make a mistake. If it makes a mistake, it's not appealable. I'll give you an instance. In 1979, when Nigeria still had about 19 states, we had an election where Shagare of MPN won only 12 states. Mathematically speaking, 2/3 of 19 then was 12.6, which means on approximation, it should be 13 states, where he won the 2/3 majority as required by the Constitution. The required spread to be declared president. Awolowo went to court. The Supreme Court erred in judgment, saying that 12 states was okay. But today, it has been reviewed. So we have what's known as judicial review. It has been struck out. Nobody will put that judgment in a court of law. So maybe subsequently we may get to see some. That was why when Babangida wrote that book, saying, we are sorry, we are not the election of June 12, MKO actually won. Peter Obi said, maybe in the future too, another, maybe INEC will come out to say we are sorry for the mistakes we make. So I think it's like that. But then it goes to also establish something. Judiciary is just a human institution. It can to a large extent be influenced by certain considerations, including politics.
All right, our wonderful viewers, we're going to go on a very short break, and when we come back, issues of the moment continues. Don't get away. Be there. All right, our wonderful viewers, I'm glad you're still there. You're welcome back to your darling station, The Living Television. We are still on it. Issues of the moment. We are discussing the political crisis in Rivers State and also the recent Supreme Court judgment that has affected the entire people of Rivers State. Before now, we've always heard that democracy is the government of the people, for the people, and by the people. Today, how do we put it? Do we say democracy is government of the people, by the judiciary, and for the judiciary? Doc?
Well, whenever I'm talking about the judiciary, I'm being very careful. in castigating the judiciary, even though as a human being, I have the right to express myself. But I can always tell us that, just as Comrade will always assert, they are not infallible. Certain times their decisions can be influenced by some factors we may not know. Why not declaring that the last ruling against Governor Simi Fubara was influenced unduly? But I have my reservations. So this is a human institution. They can make mistakes. They are not perfect. However, when they make their mistakes, it affects a whole lot of things. Judiciary, as we were taught in the secondary school, is that it is the last hope of the common man. But in a situation where the common man can no longer obtain justice from that judiciary, then we are gone. In a democracy like ours, where you are told if you don't like the outcome of the election, go to court. If you don't like this, go to court. What does it tell us? It tells us that that person asking you to go to court has some confidence that if you go to court, he has a way of getting judgment in his favor or his honor. So that is our problem. So our democracy is such that the executive controls the legislature, the executive controls the judiciary, controls everything. And in that case, you don't expect to get sound judgment.
All right, comrade, just a few years past, some of the judges who gave judgment to Hope Uzodinma of Imo State, some of them were banned from entering America as a result of that judgment, the number 3% becoming the first. And then it has not taught any lesson. That I don't think our people have learned any lesson, especially the judiciary. What do you have to say about that?
Thank you so much. I think it's the current Chief Justice of the Federation was the one who even chaired that panel. Kekere Ekun is the current Chief Justice of the Federation. Am I correct?
You're right.
Yeah. Chaired that panel that awarded that controversial judgment of the fourth placed candidate emerging first. Unfortunately, it also points to a particular direction. There is this rejection whenever there is. We are not saying every judgment should be perfect, but we are saying justice must be seen to have been done. You understand? But in most cases, you see that the Nigerian populace, just like Doc said, has lost confidence. You understand? When it has to do with the judiciary. That the aftermath of election bettered protest. Citizens were writing to the American Embassy, British High Commission, Canadian High Commission, Australian High Commission, Ghanaian High Commission, writing to our partners, those we call our partners in election, those who are in one way or the other support our election, whether technically, financially, like the EU, saying do not allow these persons to enter your country. They mad our democratic process or our institution. So that goes to show you where we are. Unfortunately, some of those judges, some of those justices were denied entry into the US. Yes, it speaks to something that the institutions of democracy we have today, the problem we are having, like Obama said of America, of Africa, is that we have stronger men. Stronger men have always emerged on the scene, while institutions weaken by the day. So it's been the problem for us. And look at how this is going to affect governance in Rivers State. You have 23 local councils and you have workers there, and when you withhold their statutory allocation, how do you expect them to feed? Just like Doc has been asking. So what do you expect? How do you expect governance at the grassroots to run? And I think also to a large extent we are having problem what I call IGR, intergovernmental relations. You understand? The analysis is that it runs vertically, top to the bottom. When you look at it, the federal government is at the top, the states at the middle, then the local at the base. Either way you look at it, even horizontally, when you talk about states as co-equal subnational governments, you see that the institutions of the judiciary had been weakened, had been bastardized. That you even have, for the first time in a country like ours, the Supreme Court is supposed to be the final court of jurisdiction, am I correct? But the appeal court upturned what the Supreme Court did in the last election. Supreme Court was using the inter-party or to say pre-primary affair to say no, you don't bring it up. But the appeal court used it to sack people, including the United States here. We're talking about, I think, Honorable Destiny and all that, in the same window, in the same dispensation. So it speaks to something. We have the problem. But then I want to remind the government of the day even the gods, by extension, that whatever will happen, the next thing that hits Nigeria should not come from them. Doc said something important. Look at how this thing has been metastasizing. In 1960s, we were there. It's unfortunate that we don't learn from history. What people call Biafra War didn't begin in the old eastern region. It started in the west, in the early 60s. The crisis. Then you had the regional election crisis of 1964. Before that, that had been fueled by the ideological cleavage between Awolowo and the Akintola. We had the Wide West. We had the Penkele Messi. We had Operation Wetier. It was happening. All these things were happening in the west. Sending invitation signal to the military, to the Kake boys. It was what was happening in the west that these boys came to correct. Then we went to war. So they have to be careful. Now look at this thing. It's taking turn. It's happening. Dog can say something. Currently, it's happening in Osun State. It was happening in Lagos State. It's happening in River State now. So the federal government has to be careful the way it handles some of these issues. And again, the president has always shown himself. In fact, he's been called a deal broker. I don't know how a president who is a deal broker will step into a matter that is not even a matter concerning his party. This is PDP. Then it ended in an ambush. Because this man wanted to obey the president, said he's the father of the nation, I want to go by his word. There was no soft landing whatsoever. Today, the implication of that judgment is that all the instruments of power had been handed over to Nyesom Wike. The governor is no longer in control of the judiciary. The four-man house had been, in fact, it had been declared a nullity by the courts, saying you must recognize and represent the budget before the 27-man-led 27-man house led by Amehule. Now, you have dissolved the councils, and we know that the elections were conducted there by the governor. You have dissolved the councils, which means even at the grassroots, the governor is no longer there. At the state level too, he's not in control of the legislature. And I'll tell you something. Even the Attorney General he appointed, don't forget that the former Attorney General retired following this matter. He had to retire. This one he appointed was never vetted by the Martin Amehula committee. So where is the fate of the governor in all this?
All right, wonderful. Because of our time, we're going to look at this briefly. Doc, talking about godfatherism, I think that is what led to the crisis in the politics in River State. The political disputes in River State is as a result of a political godfatherism. Because if Wike had not played the godfatherism and had allowed the people to make their choice, I'm not sure this would have happened. What would you have to say about political godfatherism?
Our elections in Nigeria are characterized by godfatherism from the state level to several places. We know Abia State, what happened in 2015 when the godfatherism played its role, and then we can see what is happening in River State, where a governor, as you are leaving office, you want your successor to be somebody handpicked by you. Not just being handpicked by you, so that you go to the extent of ensuring that his appointees will come from you, and you keep controlling him while he's still there as a governor. You are in the comfort of your bedroom or wherever you are, controlling the affairs of the state. It is a problem in Nigeria, and the issue is that how can we address it? If, just as Comrade said, it means that the people in River State were not allowed to make their choice. Okay, you said it. So maybe if they were given the free hand to make their choice, we wouldn't have had the problem we are having today. So it is an issue that has become a cankerworm here. And how to address it is what I don't even know what to do. However, if we have strong institutions, such as INEC, where people's votes will count, these things will be checked. A situation where somebody will speak like someone who already knows the outcome of an election, whether you vote for him or not. Somebody said it, an outgoing governor said, whether you vote for my candidate or not, he's going to be the governor of the state. It means that, in this case, he has already determined the outcome of the election, whether the people vote or not. And that goes a long way in contributing to this voter apathy. Don't be surprised that in the next election, fewer people will come out to vote because they have lost confidence in the electoral process. As a result, godfatherism cannot be easily checked in Nigeria. If you ask me what can be done to control it, that I cannot tell you. But all I know is that it is part of the problem we have in this nation.
Okay, comrade, looking at godfatherism, political godfatherism is like where you have a television in your house, and another man out there has the remote control. And that is exactly what it is. How has it failed in Nigeria?
Yeah, it has not been easy here. Even if you talk about the persons of Azikiwe, Awolowo, those were godfathers. They were also godfathers. Don't forget, they were godfathers. Zikis, those who were following Azikiwe, Awoist, those who were following Awolowo, they saw them as the big God. In fact, they saw them as they.
Were they as domineering as
yes,
this current?
They were.
Godfatherism?
Yes, they were to a large extent. If you know what actually happened in the NCNC, of course you know. When Azikiwe lost out in the West, he had to come back here and told Ayoeta to leave. It was a very big problem. We now started having ministers without portfolio. Michael Opara was there as a humble Zikist. He actually benefited. People do not know that people like Mbono, GK, Michael Opara, they rose to the rank because they were at some point loyal to Zik. You understand? Even Awolowo, talk about Jakonde and the rest of them. These were Awoist, and the same process is happening. Even Tinubu. If you look at it today, you see that Tinubu was almost like a boy to Abiola. What caused the Abiola study? Abiola studied accountancy. What did Tinubu study? The same thing. What business did Abiola engage in? Media. He owned media outlets. They print. The Concord. Tinubu is doing the same thing. You understand? Just try to look at it. You see that godfatherism is the political. In fact, it's like the print in Nigerian politics. That's why in our balance here, if you want to start today, they say Nandi, have you carried that for somebody? That's how it starts. True. It's been embedded here in the system we practice here. That somebody, even if you have money, no matter even if you are a money bag, you can't even access certain offices without having. Just look at what happened in the book launch of IBB. A business mogul, someone came out to say, I'm using his language, he met all of us. He mentioned names of the Nigerian billionaires. So he speaks to something. Godfatherism is the bane of our politics. It is something killing us. And that's why you see the devotion, the commitment people actually exhibited in the last election, trying to install a particular candidate, whether he was popular or not. And that's why you could see people churn out hate lines, ethnic narratives, just to paint a particular picture they want in favor of the candidate they are seeking to install. So it's unfortunate.
All right, most Nigerians had believed that by today, the actions of the Rivers State governor would have stopped this godfatherism. But unfortunately, the Supreme Court had done otherwise. And then whatever happens, godfatherism is not the best for Nigerians even as we speak. And I don't know if it has done us any good, or is it more harm than good. Whatever happens, the distinguished ladies and gentlemen, this is where we are drawing the curtain for today. Remember, on Thursday we are going to have another wonderful day. Remember, for those of you that have been keeping dates with us, when we talked about the autonomy, local government autonomy, we discussed it here severally with this same analyst, and then today, the federal government hearkened to our voices, and then today we have it. But by Thursday we are going to look at it. Is it actually working? This autonomy, is it actually working? That is what we're going to look at by our next sitting by Thursday. From my left, from my right, I have Comrade Nnamdi Lekwachi. Comrade, thank you for being part of today's program.
The greater part of the pleasure is always mine.
And by my left, I have Dr. Stanley Nduaga. Doc, you're welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator, and thank you for being there with us, dear viewers.
And this is Young Command Chinedum Godson Adiele. Keep it there with us. We'll be back.